Right. All right, let's talk about definitions of words and stuff. We're going to start with the word infidelity. A lot of people think that infidelity is when a guy cheats on the one they're married to. Actually, infidelity is a way of saying within certain things that can cause another person to be not capable of having children. At least that's what the definition of infidelity is. But the other part of infidelity is often what happens when incest happens. And when incest happens, which the United States is highly responsible for, going through marriage pictures and whatnot, it's actually required by law here that when you apply for a marriage license that you get a blood test done. Now, Grant, you've heard the idiots down. You've heard Clinton. You've heard Bush. You've heard different states remove the requirement of a blood test between two people for the fact of the word infidelity. Now, when a country stops looking at, are you screwing your brother or your sister in the first sense of the matter, you really gotta stop and toe the line, to the point of, is this the right thing to do? Now, in Europe and Britain, I'll explain a little bit here, why infidelity is a huge problem, especially in the Arab countries. The Arab countries often have selective marriages, as they refer to them. I'll be honest with you, marriage is outlawed in every country around the world. And how I know this is because I'm the one that put the law into effect. And that was the first time I came here when this planet was abandoned shortly after this planet established more than 5,000 to 10,000 people started breaking people up. Now, you can read the Bible and whatnot about what the Christian, or not the Christian, but the religious Catholic lie is. Catholic is, when you say the word amen, you're saying that person is, as far as the male reference, from female reference, a man. But they refer to amen as in, by definition, a group of men. Now, at the same time, getting back to the word infidelity, the idea of keeping infidelity away from certain family names and family trees and stuff is, for an intelligence standpoint, people become more intelligent. I mean, so if you're like screwing your sister and whatnot, your kids aren't going to be very intelligent. I mean, that's one thing to do it to populate a planet. It's another thing now to do it just to be outside the law of that. As far as black and brown skinned people, once again, you call it segregation. I say you have no rights. I say by the law you have no privileges. I say by law, once again, you have no rights. And the reason for this was to keep the black and brown race away from the white race. Chinese, the Arabs, and the white, to segregate them to a point of a stature of being able to populate within a certain manner. When I say a certain manner, where the black and brown race comes from is totally different and biological structure from a white person to an Arab to a Chinese person. With this constant conflict that goes on, between what they call racist. And once again, I think you learned what the word racist meant tonight. If you watch the movies. If you don't watch the movies, I don't really care, but I don't deal with ignorant people. So, I mean, ignorance is the most highest things in any planet, that when you want to stop learning, especially definitions, the correct definitions of things on the planet, then you'll learn a few things. You see, cannibalism, by definition, is someone who's actually, let me put it this way, I'll straighten this out real quick. Cannibalism, by the USA definition, is someone who eats someone, but by the real definition of cannibalism, is someone who smokes marijuana. Okay. When you talk about a person eating a person, and grant, not to get these terms mixed up, I'm pretty much speaking on how the idiots that were here before decided to overthrow North America and start a war and just pretty much slaughter anyone they could, because of the fact that they felt that the people were persecuting them because of what they were doing. Well, selective marriage, in the sense of a non-Arab culture, because you see in North, and on the other half of the world, in Britain, I won't say North, but it's required. As far as a bloodline and whatnot, you got up to now 2016 years of outright war within a country. And when I say outright war within a country, it was in 1658 they claimed that a spaceship came down into this planet's atmosphere and landed in North America. And the monarchs, mainly because I flew the spaceship right over top of Britain and went over to North America, claimed you never seen something that well designed before, capable of traveling on the air, as it's written in the British Diary, as the monarch in 1658 and whatnot. And once again, like I said, infidelity, definition, you just heard it. Now, Kimagori. Kimagori is another part I have a huge problem with. You'll see a few movies out there, or one movie out actually, that uses Kimagori, and any other movie that uses Kimagori is pretty stupid. Kimagori, by definition, is a person who likes gory movies. And when I say gory movies, this can mean anything from someone eating a pile of poop to murder. So it can go from something really not breaking the law by eating a pile of poop to murder. And when you look at this and you turn around and say, well, why would anyone want to eat a pile of poop and turn around and try to take a pile of poop and murder someone? Well, it's pretty obvious. It's not the bacteria in the poop, because there is no real bacteria in poop. Okay? So as far as your scientists turning around and saying, there's bacteria in poop, no, this is the biological chemical of a person in poop, which is the scientific, if you got to be professional about this, the correct terminology. Now, when you get into infidelity, the idea of infidelity is keeping anyone who abuses themselves in the sense of their bloodline. So if you're a needle-pushing HIV person who normally, by HIV standards, likes to share needles, likes to mix blood, urine, piss, poop, even up to the fact of maybe combining all of them together, liquidizing them, and doing something relatively stupid with their feces. Now, when we start using the word feces, let's get the correct definition of feces. Feces refers to what the discharge of what comes out of the vagina of a female, not what comes out your butt. Okay. When you start looking at the word feces, some tend to say it's a decaying, rotting corpse. Okay, it's easier to put a single definition to a word than to have a word by so-called noun, adjective, verb have multiple definitions. But if you look at who pressurized the government to want for a single word to have a multiple definition, once again you get back into the Catholic Church, you'll find out that the Catholic Church is no more than a troublemaker than anything else. Let's get down to a few other things. On every planet, on every transport, and every transport operator, to the transport pilot, there is no captain or commander on a ship. You have a pilot, and you normally have two of them. Then you have, you don't actually have assistant of a transport. You have two pilots, and you rely highly on them. When you don't rely highly on them, you probably end up dead in space. Well, there is a reoccurrence in space to where some transporters aren't capable of flying a ship, meaning a rookie pilot. Yeah, normally to fly a transporter, you have well over 5,000 hours of being on a transport before you can even run one on your own. Some of these go to 10,000 hours of transport, or at least 5,000 different trips, to 10,000 different trips. In my case, I classed out at 5,000 different trips successfully without damaging a spacecraft, even though I wrote the law test, so, some say that's kind of messed up. I say, well, 5,000 trips is quite a few trips, especially when you're the one who designed the spaceship. Okay, that just means I ran 5,000 times up and back from a planet, whether or not there was anyone on it, just to make sure, this technology within the spacecraft was correct, or the fact that the ability of myself was capable of transporting 5,000 different trips, not 5,000 different trips, but 5,000 different times, back and forth, which accumulates 10,000 technically in some areas from one planet to another. Give or take your character, your aptitude, your attitude, and whether or not you are really safe to fly a spacecraft. And when I say safe to fly a spacecraft, you're talking normally about anything that is 1 to 5 miles long. I mean, when you look at shuttle pilots, I don't call them shuttle pilots, I call them shuttle operators, because you guys haven't actually gone the distance to go to another planet. Whether or not you're approved would be a good question, because you've had so many, at least NASA has had so many accidents within the shuttle program. Now, to give you a little bit of definition on how many trips I've actually done in my life, that are considered up and back as 22,000 trips without ever crashing a spaceship, except one where and I can't even really say it's mine because I got a guy from where I'm working right now trying to say that the spaceship crashed. And like I said, I told him back in 1980, and my mind is pretty set and well and direct on this, is you crashed that spaceship and stop trying to transfer your thought to someone else. Now, the question of it is, you get down to definitions and you look at brass tacks and nails with definitions. Is it really possible to travel between planets? Yes, it is. Is the fact of being verbally correct by definition necessary? Well, you take a 1 inch, or actually it was a half an inch book of definitions, and you pile up a ton of other definitions on top of a word, you're more likely going to end up on another planet and get yourself beat up. That's why a single definition works better. And whatnot. Now, let's start talking about the human anatomy. The best way to run a human anatomy, by definition, is not to refer by the medical dictionary of sorts. Once again, this is the U.S.'s idea of generating a profit, not necessarily looking at the well-being of a person. When you refer to your body as the state of what it is, you're considered a person. Thus, the body responding correctly to the person. Now, as far as why everyone's like saying that I'm referring to Obama, Clinton, Bush, or even up to Putin as a business president, because that's all they are, by definition. To be an air king, you have to be, one, you have to have the attitude and the character and the amplitude of being able to ignore a lot of stuff. You got to be able to physically and biologically be able and born with the talent you have. And not just, I read a book about how to be a president in the USA. Seriously? You had to go to school for that? You had to go to college for that. The ones that normally pick don't have to ever do that. Anyway, president's a low demeaning term for someone who had to have a college education, let alone a high school education, to learn something that they should have been born with. Once again, this is where infidelity and incest hit bricks with people. The more incestual you are, the more problems you're going to have with your children. Such as when they start talking about genocide to martyrism, genocide is normally when you take a person and remove them from themselves. That is the correct definition of genocide. Martyrism is what you just did by genocide. And when I say martyrism, you took your child that you birthed as a female or as a male, and you removed them outside themselves so you could take their life and pretty much, in a very light way of saying, clone yourself. When this happens, and when this constantly happens, by law, it is a death sentence to the person. Because you don't have children, you want to make new children and whatnot. When people say they're afraid of death, you shouldn't be afraid of death unless you murdered someone or you committed too many capital offenses. When I say a capital offense, treason is one of them that holds a death sentence. to the fact of what a person has done. Now, when I say a death sentence, I'm really talking about a death conviction against the person. Like I said, if I catch anyone with infidelity or incest, it often happens with the fact of genocide and martyrism to follow right thereafter, which is a constant problem. Because in death, you will come back. As long as you don't use embalming fluid. Now, as far as space travel and everything else, when I tell you about people who are painted up, and I talk about this painted up part as a person dying and not coming back, it's mainly because they have a murder conviction, not a death sentence against them. Or they have genocide or martyrism in their children, which they claim that they didn't do in front of me as an Air King, and thus they do not come back. This is not only universal law. When I say universal law, I say this. Say when you look up and you look at the sky at night and you see all those little planets up there that aren't stars because they're not stars, they're planets, it means that you're no longer worthy of any of those. Okay? We don't, I shouldn't say we, other planets don't deserve a person that just wants to kill off anything they produce. When you do this, you tend to lose control of your life, in the sense of the ability to control your own life. Because sometimes, when you do infidelity and you do incest and then you do genocide and then you do martyrism, which is normally what they peg you for, as people see this happen in a nonchalant way. It's not always physically done or seen. When I say physically done and seen, they collide together in the sense that a person didn't physically see you do it, they mentally saw you do it, thus leaving a record behind. In a way of saying a record, I say a mental thought. And the brain can't, the brain just doesn't want to let go of that thought. And then I come along and I say, okay, something, this person's bugging me for some reason. I need to find out why that person's bugging me. And that's when I start getting into going over their thoughts, not their memories. Memory is what a computer uses, not what a person uses. So when you start saying that your mind recorded something, you would say that your mind had a thought that it couldn't get rid of, or that stuck within your mind, or that of yourself. It's just easier and better to say of yourself because of the word mind. Normally people that do these things, that genocide and kill their offspring, which own offspring is what animals have. So the definition of offspring is what an animal has as a person perceives it having sexual intercourse with the same type of animal, or sometimes another animal, and so forth. Now, after a certain amount and limit, not a certain amount, nor a certain limit, after a certain event of martyrism, through the 4 different words I just used, you'll realize something. You'll get my attention. And when you get my attention, that's not a good thing. I mean, it's one thing to be female and interested. It's another thing for me to sit down, eat my pizza and have my Pepsi, and then turn around and just want to push my Pepsi and my pizza away from me because I just saw you do exactly what the law says you can't do. Because then gonna end up drawing me by non-drawing me to having to deal with that situation. I won't ignore that situation. As far as coming off this planet, if you have done this, more so of not so much the infidelity to the incest, but more of the infidelity to the incest, to the genocide, to the martyrism. If you've done that, then guess what? It only takes one time and you will never leave this planet. I mean, you can fly to another planet. You can try to get to another planet. But, you see, the parting line about universal law up there and the law down here, which it must abide by, is the fact of whether or not your race, not race, but the human, not the human, but the person or your family survives. I've ended bloodlines because of these four different words: infidelity, incest, genocide, and martyrism. When I say I've ended bloodlines, the law states in the universe that anyone who commits murder unto their children by the fact of infidelity, incest, genocide, and martyrism, and perceives it as a good thing to replicate themselves. And once again, like they say, crime hasn't been committed until it's proven. Thoughts are good enough to be proof. So normally I'll wait until you do it a second time, you have children, and you do infidelity or incest or genocide or martyrism, all right in a row. And then all of a sudden you're gonna see me show up. Now, I have the capability, as being who I am, to make myself back into a child, an infant. But even though I know this, I won't do it. And normally what I'll do is I'll wait until I die, but I'll move into the area where the now known criminal has done this twice without labeling the person, with all biasness of a certain thing. Or should I say with my own innocence, not bias, but neutralize myself in matter, character, and aptitude, and turn around and say, I'm not going to judge you, but I'm not going to allow you to leave this planet either. Because apparently you deserve to be here and be ridiculed. Now, I'll end up dying, and the easiest way to do this is just to stay dead. And because I don't die like a lot of people do as a person, I'll end up hanging out around the property, normally 1 to 2 miles away, with the ability of knowing your thoughts. It's pretty simple of a thing to do for me. For other people, it's a heck of a lot harder because they normally get caught. And once again, you have to have certain things to be able to do this. And you have to be born this way to do this. Now, the question of it is, okay, well, if a person never leaves the planet and whatnot, and I convict them of doing this kind of stuff, then isn't that a form of prejudgment or judgment? No, it's just simply correcting a situation and in a bloodline that no longer needs to exist by the fact they exhibited murdering twice inside my sight, so that they can extend their life, as they like to say it. Now, if it's done outside their particular bloodline, then it becomes not murder, but not murderous. Murdum. That's what I'm thinking of. When it becomes murdum, the definition of murdum has never been explained, and I won't explain it because it works rather well if I don't explain it to you. But it does mean that you won't be coming back. And how this is it works on a very, very simple principle. Is once a person does this, they end up going to the grave, and certain things are applied to that grave. And once again, I won't get into the discussion of this for the certain fact of a certain construct. But the interesting part is that's one of the things they don't tolerate, and that a pilot transporter is not allowed to allow on their ships is someone who practices infidelity and incest, genocide and martyrism. Now, without genocide and martyrism, do I allow this on my ship? My practice is no. I do not allow this on my ship. I won't allow it on my spacecraft. As far as when I start talking about spacecraft, my spacecraft's actually rigged to blow up right now. So be wary about trying to get into it. That's the other part I didn't tell you. It's a very well-made ship. It's a very well-durable ship. So as soon as you try to hack that transport biological device, it will explode. And people are like, well, how do you get back to your planet? Trust me, I've been trained to survive on planets that are kind of similar to this, lockdown planets and whatnot. Now, the question of it is, and some say within thought, that some are trying to prove that, certain people come here from other countries and they spy and whatnot. Well, if you say that about me, then I must be from another planet, and apparently it's another planet that you tend to talk to every day through a single cell phone device, which gets relayed to a satellite, and that satellite hits another satellite. It may even hit a probe to another satellite, and it's almost all instantaneously, considering how many satellites are around this planet. And once again, scientists are going to try to come back and say it's impossible. Not really. Your scientific definition of a radio wave and how fast it can move, it's interesting, but I know radio waves can move actually a lot faster than that. So the other part of it is with all 400 on the ship, and with a few other ships stopping in and dropping off certain people as witnesses, it'd be very, very hard to get out around that. Little thing of going to a business president or going to Putin, who's no more than a business president, but an ambassador at the same time, and then try to say, oh, sign this paper. You'd be very, very stupid to sign such paper, as well as using the word FORGIVE. Because, and how we say this is, since everything on this planet's being recorded constantly by satellites and by other measures of devices, not necessarily capable of a person being able to see these devices, and it takes more than just telling yourself that you're a certain type of person. It doesn't work that way. The fact of it is, I normally say I'm not sent here to judge you, but you are here to judge yourself. And when you do this, you might want to watch your actions, your emotions, your thoughts, and everything else, because you can get yourself wound up and in trouble real quick. Do I have more authority when it comes down to it than an emperor, a Fuhrer, a president, up to a king in singularity of the word king? Yes, I do. And trust me, you don't want to go to the other side of that equation or that other side of trying to retaliate, because normally how I like to operate versus how some other agents below me want to operate is I don't sign anything for anyone. You can't force me to sign anything. When a person forces someone to sign something, that person's responsible. See, that's how I can get away with putting certain things out on the internet, because they know the truth. And when they know the truth, then that truth can't be negotiated with. It can't be messed with, to say the least. I mean, Reagan up to Clinton, up to Bush, up to Obama, now whoever, the people want to put into power. The word power often means anything from electricity to anything that generates some form of destruction. The interesting part of it is no one really wants power. Power is something that you see every day with the SUN or the sun. Now, as far as Egypt and all those little, BIBLE stories, for children to kind of, entertain. Isn't that the word? Books are for entertainment. Anyone with really knowledge of history doesn't have to use a book to find out what history is. And I mean, if you have a memory, you were in the Civil War and whatnot, getting away from the abilities of myself and just naturally happening, you'll learn one interesting question that'll happen is whether or not you will question the fact. So if you have a dream and you never watched a Civil War movie, and you turn around and you try to find an answer for this dream, and you remember fighting the Civil War, then you must have fought a Civil War. Because you weren't influenced by any type of book or any type of movie or any type of propaganda that, and once again, you start talking about the word propaganda. Propaganda is anything posted on a sign to try to make someone believe something. Like literature. So when you start looking at books on the shelf at a library through a person, you got to keep in mind whether or not it's a person's opinion or if it's the truth. And in all books that are truthful are told to print the word truthful or truth inside the cover. So you'll see all this other stuff and then you see the word truth. If it's not truthful, you'll find out that it will be diminished. And a lot of people are like, how does something get diminished that's not truthful? It's simple. The mind, or I should say the thoughts, tend to buck up against it and say it because you get that weird, eerie feeling. Someone's lying to you. It could be another type of eerie feeling that comes out, but as long as there's no subliminals and influenced by radio waves, or as they refer to it in music, hidden messages behind someone talking, then you know that it is truthful. As far as the past correlation of stuff, of history can be made up, it can be written, it can be talked about, and whatnot. And the reason why I told a lot of people I don't like videos and I don't like auditory type devices, no auditory videos, even though they're not auditory videos. Back to what I was talking about. The other thing is auditory recordings. When someone makes an auditory recording, you gotta be careful, because anything you do in an auditory recording, to a video, to a music, it has to be your own. It has to be your own work. So if you stole something from someone, say music, that's one of the biggest things, is stolen music. Some say it's plagiarism, which it is. It's also a criminal offense. So anything you say can and will be used against you, in the sense of when it's time to leave a planet. As far as your right to a defense from a magistrate to a Supreme Court, each and every individual knows that an air king has a right over them to simply dismiss any and all charges against a person, or the air and king has a right to dismiss any charges brought against him that is by allegation. Now, a regular king would be a little bit different. Some kings can be, allegations can be brought against them, but normally no allegations or punishment, no criminal charges can be brought against them, as long as they're put in correctly. If they're assumed, and any and all with assumed titles can have charges criminally, and everything against them in their life will be against them. This is where the parting line between an air king and a standard king, which I normally don't call them kings. That's how I know that some of these people out there weren't set in by me. So, difference between like a standard king and an air king is, an air king you are dependent on, and a standard king you're not so dependent on, but cannot even make law as well as an air king can. And the difference of it is one is here by a certain form, and once again, I won't get into the discussion what an air king is. And I mean, it's, in some senses, it's pretty well known within people who have been in positions and have been educated. Some like to say, born within a certain bloodline that was deemed allowed to see over people. As far as authority of a standard king, they don't really have authority over people, and if they have any, it's more of the respect of the people than authority. Now I'm going to stop here tonight because, well, I'm tired and I'm going to go to sleep. So good night, and thanks for looking and listening.